Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Some Salesforce Guy, the podcast where we make Salesforce less scary for schools. Today's topic is going to be mapping the student journey in K-12 instances using Salesforce. So now if you've ever thought, where do I even start when you're beginning to build your student model, you're not alone. These things are really difficult to think about, especially in a system that you may not have experience in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how you should be thinking about modeling, again, in this K-12 instance, how you should be modeling and developing or implementing features along a student's journey from inquiry to graduation. So treat this episode as your roadmap in how to structure the student journey, which tools to use, and how not to over-engineer your platform. Now, what is a student journey? A student journey is going to be the complete experience a student has from their initial inquiry, enrollment, their daily life at the school, their graduation, and then them becoming an alumni. For K-12 schools, this often includes inquiry and admissions, enrollment and registration, attendance, academics, parent-family communication, support services like IEPs and interventions, and then their exit, or rather their graduation workflow. Think of this student journey like a public transit map. Every stop matters, but your goal is to make the whole system connected and clear, at least for those who are using it. Now let's start with inquiry and admissions. Inquiry and admissions to a school and to most schools start with a school website. Every school is already going to have one. It's already going to be maintained. The great thing about Salesforce is that it's not trying to replace anything like a school's website or any of the other necessary technology that's already integrated into the school. So how we drive leads into the system is through Salesforce's web-to-lead functionality. Salesforce's web-to-lead allows you to build a custom lead form that you can then embed onto your website to generate leads and interest and have them auto-converted into the system. Now, the web-to-lead form generator allows you to pick the data fields in leads that are most important to the school, such as date of birth, where a student may be transferring from, where a student lives, all of that initial lead information that you gather before you bring someone in for a tour or interview someone to join the school. Outside of the lead form being generated, it's very basic as Salesforce pushes functionality rather than design. However, in my experience, if you have a little knowledge in CSS, you can kind of zhuzh up your web to lead form and make it look really nice. But again, you're going to need that base knowledge, or at least know how to search around to figure out how to make your web to lead form look better than what is auto-generated for you. Once that lead is converted, let's say you brought a student into the school, they seem like a perfect fit for your school, you convert them. This converts the student into what's called a contact. Now, in a K-12 setting, we're going to rely on contacts and accounts, and that may sound confusing. So every individual person in a household becomes a contact from that lead. So let's say a parent submitted a lead form or an inquiry form. You've now converted that lead into a contact. It's subsequently going to create an account as well, and the account is going to be modeled after the household itself. The account or household is going to house everyone that is involved in the student's life. It could be mom and dad, mom and mom, dad and dad, cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents, everyone that's involved in this student's life. Now, as I'm speaking, Salesforce currently doesn't convert a lead. When you convert the lead into a contact, if you're working in a K-12 setting, the initial contact is probably going to be the parents, or it's always going to be the parent. And as of right now, Salesforce doesn't generate a student contact from the lead information. It will just generate the contact of the person that submitted the form, which is the parent. Now, if you have understanding and knowledge in workflows, you can set up a workflow to auto-generate the student contact. That way, you take half of the work out of it. But again, that involves a understanding of how flows work inside of Salesforce, and you have to have the knowledge to set that up. Now, once they're converted into their contact account and you have an opportunity here, because our journey is just beginning and we have to apply and register for school, they roll into our next category, which is enrollment and registration. Now, out of the box, Salesforce doesn't necessarily have a registration applications object inside of it. However, with some knowledge, you can build a custom object for applications and for registrations, as well as for re-registrations in the future. In my instance, how we set this up was we created a custom object for applications, registrations, and re-registration, and we created a community portal, which is another function of Salesforce, which served as a front-facing Salesforce-hosted website for parents to log in as community users. And when they logged in, what they would see is a generic website with our school information, as well as a tab that from Salesforce's end generates their application or registration depending on where they are in the process. With the K-12 kit, Salesforce automatically tracks what grade program that the student is in. And going back to what I was saying earlier about the generation of the contact and account records, Salesforce automatically associates the primary contact guardian as the person that was converted from the lead and auto-generates that household account. Now, we finished. They are a full-on student. This is where things roll over into the Student Success Hub, where Salesforce allows you to do things like track attendance under attendance event objects, which is special to the K-12 kit. It allows you to track statuses for tracking current years or terms within the system for the student, and allows for other custom objects like behavior logs. If you're the type of school that tracks student behaviors, it allows for behavior logs, academic progress, and then services like IEPs. If you're no stranger to the podcast and you know that I work in an educational setting running a Salesforce org, then you already know that we have custom objects set up for IEPs, student therapy notes, etc., etc. Salesforce during the student's daily life at the school also helps support parent communication through the use of cases. So cases is really special. In the school that I currently work in, cases is used for two different things. So a case is generated for a classroom team to assign students to specific teachers and therapists for their time at the school, as well as assigning equipment to students like AAC devices. Cases can also be used for, or are intended to be used for, support cases for students. So like if a student has a problem and submits something, or if a parent has a problem, or you generate something that has come up, you generate a case and other staff members can visit the case and look at what's going on. Salesforce also allows you to use email for parental outreach and automatically tracks it within the system. This gets confusing for people because Salesforce only allows you to send your initial email out via Salesforce. It doesn't necessarily allow you to reply to emails in Salesforce, so it doesn't replace Outlook or Gmail or whatever your school's using. However, I do know of add-ons that you can implement in the system through the Salesforce App Store where you can integrate your email into Salesforce. So you're only logging into Salesforce and you can check your email or see email replies from inside Salesforce. And then finally, upon a student's graduation and exit from the school, this is where we take advantage of statuses or status fields in Salesforce, where we change someone from maybe the status is active student and we change them to graduated, or maybe there's an enrollment status and it's changed to completed. And this can all be automated with some knowledge. You can create custom objects that track when a student should be graduating, and when they do graduate, it can auto-convert fields into tracking a student has graduated. And this is for really advanced data collection metrics, but it can be done. Now, with everything I've just said, if you're listening, you're interested, you're like, hey, my school can benefit from using Salesforce Education Cloud, you're going to have to rewind, because I'm going to tell you to use something like Lucidchart or Draw.io to visually sketch out everything that I've already said. This will be super helpful if you plan on implementing Salesforce, or even if you are implementing Salesforce and you have ideas for certain objects. You need to track object relationships, track automations and what would trigger certain automations. And also building this visual map really helps you to communicate with your development team, your Salesforce partner, or even internal stakeholders when giving presentations, because mapping things out before implementing them or before giving presentations is going to help you avoid common pitfalls. I've talked about this a lot in past episodes and even on my Substack blog, because one of the most common pitfalls that you can run into is buy-in from stakeholders. If something seems overcomplicated, or if it seems like you don't understand how something's going to work, then your idea or implementing Salesforce may be dead on arrival. Another issue would be over customizing when the K-12 kit already has the objects that you need. Another great part of visualizing everything via charts is that it'll help you to recognize when flows should be implemented within the system to help automate transitions, for example, from like application to enrolled. In my particular situation, when a student makes it from the application to registration end of things, once a parent submits registration, because at the in my particular school, once you're in registration, you're coming to the school. So we do an application, it gets up to a certain point. If the application's accepted, it switches into registration. Once switched into registration, the parent will finish filling out whatever information is necessary for their student to start at the school. And once they hit submit, it'll auto switch a student's status to registered for school within the system. So it's things like this that you can accomplish when you're charting your path out. Now, I want to take some time to really talk about that automation, because this is post when your system's built and you're thinking about automating certain things and certain tasks. That way people aren't just clicking away, because that defeats the purpose of utilizing Salesforce, because Salesforce is really big on automation and flows. So some really easy ideas for automations you can make on your Salesforce journey when first getting started or when first mapping out the process is when a lead is converted into a contact, we can set up a flow to auto-generate an application record for a particular student. As I just mentioned before, in my institution, we automated the switch from submitting a registration into changing a status to registered. So subsequently, you can auto-update program enrollment when status equals accepted. You can set up automations to send follow-up emails to parents or guardians after IEPs are logged into the system. And you can even automate attendance records to be created once the calendar triggers a school day. Now, the point of this episode, and I hope it helped, is that mapping the student journey is about creating clarity for your school and consistency for your data. You know, we want to use the K-12 kit as the starting point for our building blocks of the system, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel too much. Now, don't forget to, if you haven't, subscribe to my Substack. I release at least 1 to 2 blog posts a week. We have a new series going on called Education Cloud 101, where we're breaking down certain Salesforce concepts and making them easier to understand. I'm also going to say, so flows are very difficult and actually a point of contention for most admin and developers when managing a system. And I've spoken with many institutions who talk about flows as something they're scared of because they're really hard to develop or to plan out. And also that really goes back into our whole mapping everything out that I was talking about earlier on. However, I've started to develop easy flows for schools to implement for certain use cases, and I've actually detailed them in PDFs and have them for sale in an online store. It's very easy step by step with pictures and everything to help guide you through the flow creation process. If enough interest is generated in any of the flows that I'm creating, I'll also start creating courses alongside them, as I know some people are video learners rather than reading learners. I mean, even with the PDFs, sometimes it could be difficult to navigate the system and look around. So video might be easier. So if there's any interest in purchasing flows, I'll actually create courses to show how to navigate flows and create your own flows. And again, I'm really going to push my Substack because I really want to create a community here. So go ahead and after this, look up the Some Salesforce Guy Substack, hit that subscribe, leave a comment, let's chat, leave questions for me. And honestly, thank you so much for listening if you got this far.